Tell Brak was an ancient city in Syria. Its remains constitute a tell located in the Upper Khabur region, near the modern village of Tell Brak, 50 kilometers northeast of Al-Hasaka city, Al-Hasakah Governorate. The city's original name is unknown. During the second half of the 3rd millennium BC, the city was known as Nagar and later on, Nawar. Starting as a small settlement in the 7th millennium BC, Tell Brak evolved during the 4th millennium BC into one of the biggest cities in northern Mesopotamia, and interacted with the cultures of southern Mesopotamia. The city shrank in size at the beginning of the 3rd millennium BC with the end of Uric period, before expanding again around c. 2600 BC, when it became known as Nagar, and was the capital of a regional kingdom that controlled the Khabur River Valley. Nagar was destroyed around c. 2300 BC, and came under the rule of the Akkadian Empire, followed by a period of independence as a Harran city-state, before contracting at the beginning of the 2nd millennium BC. Nagar prospered again by the 19th century BC, and came under the rule of different regional powers. In c. 1500 BC, Tell Brak was a center of Mitanni before being destroyed by Assyria. c. 1300 BC, the city never regained its former importance, remaining as a small settlement, and abandoned at some points of its history, until disappearing from records during the early Abbasid era. Different peoples inhabited the city, including the Halafians, Semites and the Hurrians. Tell Brak was a religious center from its earliest periods. Its famous eye temple is unique in the Fertile Crescent, and its main deity, Belat Nagar, was revered in the entire Khabur region, making the city a pilgrimage site. The culture of Tell Brak was defined by the different civilizations that inhabited it, and it was famous for its glyptic style, equids and glass. When independent, the city was ruled by a local assembly or by a monarch. Tell Brak was a trade center due to its location between Anatolia, the Levant and southern Mesopotamia. It was excavated by Max Malone in 1937, then regularly by different teams between 1979 and 2011, when the work stopped due to the Syrian civil war. History. Tell Brak is the current name of the tell. East of the mound lies a dried lake named Cartunia, which was recorded as Lacus Biberaci in the Roman map Tabula Peutingeriana. The lake was probably named after Tell Brak, which was the nearest camp in the area. The name Brak might therefore be an echo of the most ancient name, which is unknown. Early settlement. The earliest period A is dated to the Proto-Halaf culture c. 6500 BC, when a small settlement existed. Many objects dated to that period were discovered, including the Halaf pottery. By 5000 BC, Halaf culture transformed into northern Ubaid, and many Ubaid materials were found in Tell Brak. Excavations and surface survey of the site and its surroundings unearthed a large platform of pads and bricks that dates to late Ubaid, and revealed that Tell Brak developed as an urban center slightly earlier than better-known cities of southern Mesopotamia, such as Uruk. The first city in southern Mesopotamia, the original Ubaid culture evolved into the Uruk period. The people of the southern Uruk period used military and commercial means to expand the civilization. In northern Mesopotamia, the post-Ubaid period is designated late Chalcolithic, northern Uruk period, during which Tell Brak, whose original name is unknown, started to expand. Period Braki witnessed the building of the city's walls, and Tell Brak expansion beyond the mound to form a lower town. By the late 5th millennium BC, Tell Brak reached the size of c. 55 hectares. Area TW of the tell revealed the remains of a monumental building with 2 meters thick walls and a basalt threshold. In front of the building, a shared paved street was discovered, leading to the northern entrance of the city. The city continued to expand during period F, and reached the size of 130 hectares. 4 mass graves dating to c. 3800–3600 BC were discovered in the surroundings of the Tell, and they suggest that the process of urbanization was accompanied by internal social stress and an increase in the organization of warfare. The first half of period F saw the erection of the Eye Temple, which was named for the thousands of small alabaster eye idols figurines discovered in it. Those idols were also found in Area TW. Interactions with the Mesopotamian South grew during the second half of period FC. 3600 BC, and an Urakian colony was established in the city. With the end of Uric culture c. 3000 BC, Tell Brak's Urakian colony was abandoned and deliberately leveled by its occupants. Tell Brak contracted during the following periods H and J, and became limited to the mound. Evidence exists for an interaction with the Mesopotamian South during period H, represented by the existence of materials similar to the ones produced during the southern Jemdet-Nasa period. The city remained a small settlement during the 9-5 period, with a small temple and associated sealing activities. Kingdom of Nagar around c. 2600 BC, a large administrative building was built and the city expanded out of the Tell again. The revival is connected with the Kish civilization, and the city was named Nagar, which might be of Semitic origin and mean a cultivated place. Amongst the important buildings dated to the kingdom is an administrative building, a temple named the Brak Oval, located in Area TC. The building have a curved exterior wall reminiscent of the Kafajar Oval Temple in central Mesopotamia. However, aside from the wall, the comparison between the two buildings in terms of architecture is difficult, as each building follows a different plan. The oldest references to Nagar comes from Marian tablets discovered at Nevada. However, the most important source on Nagar come from the archives of Ebla. Most of the texts record the ruler of Nagar using his title N, without mentioning a name. However, the text from Mari record King Amaran, who could be identical to Mara-il, a king of Nagar mentioned in one of Ebla's texts. Thus, Mara-il is the only king known by name for pre-Akkadian Nagar. He ruled a little more than a generation before the kingdom's destruction, and was most probably the N recorded in the other texts, including the ones from Nevada. At its height, Nagar encompassed most of the southwestern half of the Khabur Basin, and was a diplomatic and political equal of the Eblate and Mariid states. The kingdom included many subordinate cities such as Hasna, and most importantly Nabada, which was a city-state annexed by Nagar, and served as a provincial capital. Nagar was involved in the wide diplomatic network of Ebla, and the relations between the two kingdoms involved both confrontations and alliances. A text from Ebla mentions a victory of Ebla's king over Nagar. However, a few years later, a treaty was concluded, and the relations progressed toward a dynastic marriage between Princess Dagrishdamu of Ebla and Prince Ultimhu, Nagar's monarch's son. Nagar was defeated by Mari in year 7 of the Eblate Vizier Ibrahim's term, causing the blockage of trade routes between Ebla and southern Mesopotamia via Upper Mesopotamia. Later, Ebla's king Izar Damu concluded an alliance with Nagar and Kish against Mari, and the campaign was headed by the Eblate Vizier Ibbi Sipish, who led the combined armies to victory in a battle near Turka. Afterwards, the alliance attacked the rebellious Eblate vassal city of Armi. Ebla was destroyed approximately 3 years after Turka's battle, and soon after Nagar followed in c. 2300 BC. Large parts of the city were burned, an act attributed either to Mari or Sargon of Akkad. Akkadian period. Following its destruction, Nagar was rebuilt by the Akkadian Empire to form a center of the provincial administration. The city included the whole Tell and a lower town at the southern edge of the mound. 2 public buildings were built during the early Akkadian periods, one complex in area Area SS, and another in Area FS. The building of Area FS included its own temple and might have served as a caravanserai, being located near the northern gate of the city. The early Akkadian monarchs were occupied with internal conflicts, and Tell Brak was temporarily abandoned by Akkad at some point preceding the reign of Naram Sin. The abandonment might be connected with an environmental event that caused the desertification of the region. The destruction of Nagar's kingdom created a power vacuum in the Upper Khabur. The Hurons, formerly concentrated in Urkesh, took advantage of the situation to control the region as early as Sargon's latter years. Tell Brak was known as Nawar for the Hurons, and kings of Urkesh took the title King of Urkesh and Nawar, first attested in the seal of Urkesh's king Atal-Shen. The use of the title continued during the reigns of Atal-Shen's successors, Tupkish and Tish-Atal, who ruled only in Urkesh. The Akkadians under Naram Sin incorporated Nagar firmly into their empire. The most important Akkadian building in the city is called the Palace of Naram Sin, which had parts of it built over the original Light Temple. Despite its name, the palace is closer to a fortress, as it was more of a fortified depot for the storage of collected tribute rather than a residential seat. The palace was burned during Naram Sin's reign, perhaps by a Lalubi attack, and the city was burned toward the end of the Akkadian period c. 2193 BC, probably by the Gushans. Post-Akkadian kingdom. The Akkadian period was followed by period N, during which Nagar was the center of an independent Huron dynasty, evidenced by the discovery of a seal recording the name of King Talpasatali of Nagar, who ruled during a slightly after the reign of Naram Sin's son Shah-Kali Shari. The view that Tell Brak came under the control of Ur-III is refused, and evidence exists for a Huron rebuilding of Naram Sin's palace, erroneously attributed by Max Malawin to Namu of Ur. Period N saw a reduction in the city's size, with public buildings being abandoned, and the lower town evacuated. Few short-lived houses were built in Area CH during period N, and although greatly reduced in size, archaeology provided evidence for continued occupation in the city instead of abandonment. Foreign rule and later periods. During period P, Nagar was densely populated in the northern ridge of the Tell. The city came under the rule of Mari, and was the site of a decisive victory won by Yarden-Lim of Mari over Shamshi-Adad I of Assyria. Nagar lost its importance and came under the rule of Kafid in the 18th century BC. The name Nagar ceased occurring following the Old Babylonian period. However, the city continued to exist as Nawar, under the control of Mitanni. During period Q, Tell Brak was an important trade city in the Mitanni state. A two-story palace was built c. 1500 BC in the northern section of the Tell, in addition to an associated one-room temple. However, the rest of the Tell was not occupied, and a lower town extended to the north but is now all but destroyed through modern agriculture. Two Mitannian legal documents bearing the names of kings Artashumara and Tashrata were recovered from the city, which was destroyed between c. 1300 and 1275 BC, in two waves, first at the hands of the Assyrian king Adad-Nirari I, then by his successor Shalmaneser I. Little evidence of an occupation on the Tell exists following the destruction of the Mitannian city. However, a series of small villages existed in the lower town during the Assyrian periods. The remains of a Hellenistic settlement were discovered on a nearby satellite Tell, to the northwestern edge of the main Tell. However, excavations recovered no ceramics of the Parthian, Roman or Byzantine Sasanian periods, although sherds dating to those periods are noted. In the middle of the first millennium AD, a fortified building was erected in the northeastern lower town. The building was dated by Antoine Poidebard to the Justinian era on the basis of its architecture. The last occupation period of the site was during the early Abbasid Caliphate's period, when a canal was built to provide the town with water from the nearby Jagja River. Society, people and language. The Halafians were the indigenous people of Neolithic northern Syria, who later adopted the southern Abyadian culture. Contact with the Mesopotamian south increased during the early and middle northern Uruk period, and southern people moved to Tell Brak in the late Uruk period, forming a colony, which produced a mixed society. The Urukian colony was abandoned by the colonists toward the end of the 4th millennium BC, leaving the indigenous Tell Brak much contracted city. The pre-Akkadian kingdom's population was Semitic and spoke its own East Semitic dialect of the Eblate language used in Ebla and Mari. The Nagari dialect is closer to the dialect of Mari rather than that of Ebla. No Hurran names are recorded in the pre-Akkadian period, although the name of Prince Ultimhu, who is difficult to understand as Semitic. During the Akkadian period, both Semitic and Hurran names were recorded, as the Hurrans appears to have taken advantage of the power vacuum caused by the destruction of the pre-Akkadian kingdom, in order to migrate and expand in the region. The post-Akkadian period Tell Brak had a strong Hurran element and Hurran-named rulers, although the region was also inhabited by Amorite tribes. A number of the Amorite Banu Yamina tribes settled the surroundings of Tell Brak during the reign of Zimralim of Mari, and each group used its own language. Tell Brak was a center of the Hurran-Mitannian Empire, which had Hurran as its official language. However, Akkadian was the region's international language, evidenced by the post-Akkadian and Mitannian eras tablets, discovered at Tell Brak and written in Akkadian. Religion. The findings in the Eye Temple indicate that Tell Brak is among the earliest sites of organized religion in northern Mesopotamia. It is unknown to which deity the Eye Temple was dedicated, and the Eye's figurines appears to be votive offerings to that unknown deity. Michel Meslin hypothesized that the temple was the center of the Sumerian in honor of the Semitic Ishtar, and that the Eye's figurines were a representation of an all-seeing female deity. During the pre-Akkadian kingdom's era, Hasna, an old cultic center of northern Syria, served as a pilgrimage center for Nagar. The Eye Temple remained in use, but as a small shrine, while the goddess Belut Nagar became the kingdom's paramount deity. The temple of Belut Nagar is not identified but probably lies beneath the Mitannian palace. The Eblate deity Ura was also venerated in Nagar, and the monarchs are attested visiting the temple of the Semitic deity Dagon in Tartl. During the Akkadian period, the temple in Area Fs was dedicated to the Sumerian god Shakan, the patron of animals and countrysides. Tell Brak was an important religious Hurran center, and the temple of Belut Nagar retained its cultic importance in the entire region until the early 2nd millennium BC. Culture. Northern Mesopotamia evolved independently from the south during the late Chalcolithic, early and middle northern Uruk. This period was characterized by a strong emphasis on holy sites, among which the Eye Temple was the most important in Tell Brak. The building containing Eye's idols in Area TW was wood-paneled, whose main room had been lined with wooden panels. The building also contained the earliest known semi-columned facade, which is a character that will be associated with temples in later periods. By late northern Uruk and especially after 3200 BC, northern Mesopotamia came under the full cultural dominance of the southern Uruk culture, which affected Tell Brak's architecture and administration. The southern influence is most obvious in the level named the latest Gemdet Nasa of the Eye Temple, which had southern elements such as cone mosaics. The Uruk presence was peaceful as it is first noted in the context of feasting, commercial deals, deals during that period were traditionally ratified through feasting. The excavations in Area TW revealed feasting to be an important local habit, as two cooking facilities, large amounts of grains, skeletons of animals, a domed baking oven and barbecuing fire pits were discovered. Among the late Uric materials found at Tell Brak is a standard text for educated scribes, part of the standardized education taught in the 3rd millennium BC over a wide area of Syria and Mesopotamia. The pre-Akkadian kingdom was famed for its acrobats, who were in demand in Ebla and trained local Eblate entertainers. The kingdom also had its own local glyptic style called the Brak style, which was distinct from the southern sealing variants, employing soft circled shapes and sharpened edges. The Akkadian administration had little effect on the local administrative traditions and sealing style, and Akkadian seals existed side by side with the local variant. The Hurons employed the Akkadian style in the seals, and Elamite seals were discovered, indicating an interaction with the western Iranian plateau. Tell Brak provided great knowledge on the culture of Mitanni, which produced glass using sophisticated techniques that resulted in different varieties of multicolored and decorated shapes. Samples of the elaborate nuzziware were discovered, in addition to seals that combined distinctive Mitannian elements with the international motifs of that period. Wagon seals from Tell Brak and Nawar dated to the pre-Akkadian kingdom revealed the use of four-wheeled wagons and war carriages. Excavation in Area FS recovered clay models of equids and wagons dated to the Akkadian and post-Akkadian periods. The models provides information about the types of wagons used during that period, and they include four-wheeled vehicles and two types of two-wheeled vehicles. The first is a cart with fixed seats and the second is a cart where the driver stands above the axle. The chariots were introduced during the Mitanni era, and none of the pre-Mitanni carriages can be considered chariots, as they are mistakenly described in some sources. Government. The first city had the characteristics of large urban centers, such as monumental buildings, and seems to have been ruled by kinship-based assembly, headed by elders. The pre-Akkadian kingdom was decentralized, and the provincial center of Nawar was ruled by a council of elders, next to the king's representative. The Nagarite monarchs had to tour the kingdom regularly in order to assert the political control. During the early Akkadian period, Nagar was administered by local officials. However, central control was tightened and the number of Akkadian officials increased, following the supposed environmental event that preceded the construction of Naram-Sin's palace. The post-Akkadian Nagar was a city-state kingdom that gradually lost its political importance during the early 2nd millennium BC, as no evidence for a king dating to that period exists. Rulers of Tell Brak economy. Throughout its history, Tell Brak was an important trade center. It was an entrepot of obsidian trade during the Chalcolithic, as it was situated on the river crossing between Anatolia, the Levant, and southern Mesopotamia. The countryside was occupied by smaller towns, villages, and hamlets, but the city's surroundings were empty within 3 kilometers. This was probably due to the intensive cultivation in the immediate hinterland. In order to sustain the population, the city manufactured different objects, including chalices made of obsidian and white marble, faience, flint tools, and shell inlays. However, evidence exists for a slight shift in production of goods toward manufacturing objects desired in the south. Following the establishment of the Uric colony, trade was also an important economic activity for the pre-Akkadian kingdom of Nagar, which had Ebla and Kish as major partners. The kingdom produced glass wool, and was famous for breeding and trading riding in the kunga, a hybrid of a donkey and a female onager. Tell Brak remained an important commercial center during the Akkadian period, and was one of Mitanni's main trade cities. Many objects were manufactured in Mitannian Tell Brak, including furniture made of ivory, wood and bronze, in addition to glass. The city provided evidence for the international commercial contacts of Mitanni, including Egyptian, Hittite and Mycenaean objects, some of which were produced in the region to satisfy the local taste. Equids. The kungas of pre-Akkadian Nagar were used for drawing the carriages of kings before the domestication of the horse, and a royal procession included up to 50 animals. The kungas of Nagar were in great demand in the Eblaite Empire. They cost 2 kilos of silver, 50 times the price of a donkey, and were imported regularly by the monarchs of Ebla to be used as transport animals and gifts for allied cities. The horse was known in the region during the 3rd millennium BC, but was not used as a draft animal before c. 18th century BC. Cite. Excavations. Tell Brak was excavated by the British archaeologist Sir Max Malone, husband of Agatha Christie, in 1937 and 1938. The Eye Temple was the first building unearthed, and some artifacts from that initial excavation are now preserved in the British Museum's collection, including the famous Tell Brak head. A team from the Institute of Archaeology of the University of London, led by David and Joe Notes, worked in the Tell for 14 seasons between 1976 and 1993. After 1993, excavations were conducted by a number of field directors under the general guidance of David and Joe Notes. Those directors included Roger Matthews, for the MacDonald Institute for Archaeological Research of the University of Cambridge, Jeff Embling and Helen MacDonald, for the British Institute for the Study of Iraq and the Metropolitan Museum of Art. In 2006, Augusta McMahon became field director, also sponsored by the British Institute for the Study of Iraq. A regional archaeological field survey in a 20 km radius around Brak was supervised by Henry T. Wright. Many of the finds from the excavations at Tell Brak are on display in the Syria.Its museum. The most recent excavations took place in the spring of 2011, but archaeological work is currently suspended due to the ongoing Syrian civil war. Syrian civil war. According to the Syrian authorities, the camp of archaeologists was looted, along with the tools and ceramics kept in it. The site changed hands between the different combatants, mainly the Kurdish People's Protection Units and the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. In early 2015, Tell Brak was taken by the Kurdish forces after light fighting with the Islamic State.